I'd like to call the October 6th, 2025 work session to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Deanna, will you please do the roll call?
Rebecca Moody, Vice President.
Here.
Denise Hall, Commissioner.
Here.
Liz McNaney, Commissioner.
Here.
Gregory Mull, Commissioner.
Here.
Sandra Zadell, Township Manager.
Here.
Lauren Gallagher, Township Solicitor.
Here.
Nicholas Cross, Township Engineer.
Here.
David Duffy, Chief of Police. Ryan Shapiro, Finance Director. David Conroy, Zoning Officer. And it is noted that Megan Hurst, Assistant Township Manager, is absent, and Commissioner Carter will be here late.
Thank you. For items number 4 and 5, I believe both of these will be presenting next week, so we'll move past those. And number 6, Ms. Gallagher, have there been any executive sessions?
The board met in executive session earlier this evening to discuss matters of collective bargaining, potential litigation, and personnel.
Thank you. From a public comment standpoint, I didn't have anybody sign up, but does anybody in the audience want to make a public comment? Okay, thank you. So now I will turn the meeting over to Ms. Siddell.
Thank you, and I will turn it over to Dodgers fan Dave Conroy. In case anyone couldn't see, I am wearing red pants for the Phils.
Wearing a blue shirt.
Boom.
Good evening, everyone. Okay, 1500 Pembroke Parkway. We're still working out some sewer issues. Hope to be in front of the board within the next couple months for approval or, for preliminary approval. Couple ZHB application. I know there's one on the agenda for 511 West Prospect. Resident would like to put a shed within their front yard setback because of grading issues in their yard and some trees. And just a couple housekeeping issues. 2100 Pembroke was a zoning hearing board application. They withdrew their application within the last week or two. They wanted some parking variances. I guess they're going back to the drawing board and going to draw up some new set of plans. More than likely, they'll still need zoning relief, but they were having some, I guess they said drastic changes, so they just withdrew the zoning hearing board application altogether. And another application just came in within the last day or two for 308 Gwynedd Ave. We are currently enforcing that property for running an illegal boarding house on the property, so they filed a zoning hearing board application to be heard in front of the zoning hearing board in November for that use. But that's all I really have.
Is that an appeal of the violation, or you're saying
They're actually asking for variances. I did not see in the application an appeal of my determination or my notice of violation. So a citation is also out on the property as well as we speak. So, and that's all I have. Go Dodgers.
Oh, thank you, Dave. Good thing we all have the last word. Go Phils. Okay. Items 10, 11, and 12 are for the consent agenda. What I skip? I skipped Nick, who I know is a Phillies fan and deserves all the time in the world to share his update.
Thank you,
Go
Sandra.
Phils.
Yes, I'm a little hurt, but I'll move forward. So just a couple updates on the project. So the road program, all the work's been complete. We're just addressing some punch list items with the contractor, and we should be closing that out at November's meeting. There's a payment on the agenda for this month's meeting and a change order to balance out a lot of quantities. Little spoiler alert, we are way under budget again. The West Prospect Drainage Improvements Project for Phase 2, the construction's ongoing. They wrapped up the stormwater work this week, or toward the end of last week, beginning of this week. So the remainder of the work is going to be some concrete work, and then they're going to do the final paving within the next few weeks. And then we'll close that project out as well. And that's what I had. If anybody has any questions on any other projects or anything else, I'd be happy to answer them. Go Phillies.
Thanks, Nick. Sorry, I missed you. Again, title 10, 11, 12, going on the consent agenda. Item 13 is a resolution authorizing the distribution of our general municipal pension state aid. It's sort of something we do every year that authorizes the state aid transfers. So, you have to do, thanks, Deanna, for running that. Next up, we have item 14 for the adoption of Act 49, prior police service buyback policy. This is something that the state legislature approved recently that municipalities could, it was in 2024, could add to our police contracts to allow pension service credit buybacks for police officers. So if you work as a police officer in another municipality, for SEPTA, for Philadelphia, whoever it may be, you can buy years of credit into our pension system here at Upper Gwynedd. And the question would be, we hear how that's good for officers. How is that good for Upper Gwynedd? And the way that it is good for Upper Gwynedd is that it does allow us to recruit officers who might be working in another organization. Typically, because police pensions are such a great benefit, you stay where you got hired and you don't change. But that is changing a little with the times of police hiring. We have always had a great success hiring officers from SEPTA, Philadelphia, and most recently a Lehigh Valley community. So now those officers will have a chance to retire at an age that is similar to the age of the other officers, which in our police pension is 50 years old and 25 years of service. So we want people to not have to work as police officers when they're much older than that. It's a difficult job, and we hope that people would just, injuries tend to increase as you're older and a police officer. Additionally, it will help as a recruiting tool because we have this option, and not every municipality has accepted it in their contract. So there are costs associated with it. The costs vary per officer, and they are dependent on how many years they were with the other agency, the rate of pay that they make. There's quite a formula. The officers formed a subcommittee that Commissioner Hull helped review. Brian, Bob Pro, and Minju Kim, I'm not forgetting anyone on that, right? Worked together to come up with our policy. So it's been sort of blessed by the police union, blessed by us, blessed by our actuary. And now on the 13th, we'll be asking for board approval. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, great, thank you. We will be authorizing the advertisement of ordinance 2025-2026, which is an ordinance which will enable us some additional delinquent tax collection fees. So currently, the fee that we're allowed to spend to charge, so Montgomery County Tax Claim Bureau remits 95% of delinquent real estate taxes owed to the township to us, and they charge a 5% commission. The ordinance that we are proposing would change that so that the township could receive 100% of the delinquent real estate taxes owed to the township, and the Tax Claim Bureau could charge an additional 5% on top of the 100. So basically, delinquent taxpayers will be paying more, but we won't be losing that 5% of delinquent tax payments to a fee for another agency. Did I summarize that right, Lauren? This was generated by Lauren's office.
It was, and we've worked with several municipalities to implement similar ordinances, and it works in a net positive for all the municipalities.
Yes, agreed. Thank you for suggesting that proactively as well. One thing we love about your firm.
And that will go into effect, I apologize, I don't know if you said this, it'll go into effect for the 2026 year.
Okay, perfect. I did not say that.
That was going to be my question. This is something that is successful elsewhere?
Very successful, yeah. We've had a lot of good results with this.
Oh, next up, an item Megan and I have been dreading, the end of our wonderful contract for electric, I always get it wrong, generation, is it generation? Electricity purchase, yes, it's the generation. So we had a 5-year contract that Megan and I worked on when we first got hired here 5 or 6 years ago, which set our rates over that 5-year period for electric rates. And everyone probably in the room has their own Pico bill that you've noticed has gone quite up in the last year. So we benefited from that contract in that we didn't really feel those, the impact of that increase pricing. But now we do feel the impact of the increased pricing because our contract is at an end. The good news about the contract ending is the board has an opportunity to make a decision regarding the energy quality or how it's generated. We currently had, I think, a 20% green energy rate. We are proposing two options for the board to go with either a 50% green energy or 100% green energy. The bad news is prices are going up 70% with this contract, and there is no nice way for me to say that. We spend about $300,000 or $400,000 a year on electricity just for our wastewater treatment plant. So these prices are going to really impact us with the type of operation we have. But the difference between 50% green and 100% green is actually only a 3% cost difference. So from my perspective, as a staff member, and I think I would be advocating for what I'm sure the EAC would like to see, is that 100% green is really only going to cost 73% instead of 70%. And it's something that has been an important initiative I think the EAC is looking for, as well as a lot of municipalities have moved to this 100% green rate. So bad news overall, good news for green energy in Gwynedd. Does anyone have any questions about that item?
Sort of related to that, is this something that is being considered in our budget for 2026 as well?
Oh, yes,
Okay.
Brian has already accounted for it.
Thank you.
Additionally, one thing that I wanted to point out is we get this quote from Constellation, who has a public, it's like a co-stars program for energy, so we don't have to publicly bid it. We don't have the exact rates because each day they refresh, and the day that I sign the contract is the day that you'll get the exact rates. But in general, hopefully it won't change too much between now and next Tuesday. Or is this a decision item?
No.
No, not a decision item. It won't change too much, but we'll get you updated numbers and you'll have a general idea of what's going on. Okay, the next item is a decision item. Rebecca, are you ready for it? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the background on this item, we have several older PCs that are not eligible to be upgraded to Windows 11 due to their hardware limitations. And so these units needed to be replaced. And it looks like we have 3 mini form factor PCs, 3 16-inch laptops, and 1 18-inch laptop that needed to be replaced. So to that end, I'd like to make a motion to ratify the quote from Integra One for the PC upgrade project in the amount of $14,975.01. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any board comments? Any public comments? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it unanimously.
Thanks, Commissioner Mooney. In your section for next week, we're going to have 2 items for approval. One is a waiver request for work after hours and on Sunday at Merck for the air handler, excuse me, on Building 28. Excuse me again, 3 weekends between November 23rd and February 1st of 2026, as well as an approval of the final security release to the Pulte Group for Gwynedd Ridge. This is like the longest security release in history. Very excited to report that it's on the agenda, and they have completed all of the improvements. Lag in agreements there, yes, yes. Any questions on those items? There will be nothing on the agenda next week under Commissioner Hull's section. Next week, Commissioner Mull will discuss the carnival thank yous. We will also have the authorization to advertise the bid for the long-awaited pole barn for the Park and Recreation Department. It's an additional public works building that will go behind us in our public works yard to allow for additional equipment storage. Hi, Commissioner Carter. You made it. We'll give you a little time to get situated. The next item is an approval of Resolution 25-25, which is a grant application for the local share account for a street sweeper. We have been in the market for a street sweeper this year since our street sweeper no longer was functional. This year, we're doing a bid to authorize those street sweepings for us. Deanna's been working diligently on that with John Chavala for next year, which will give us time to apply for this grant and hopefully get the funding to purchase a new street sweeper in 2027. This is a 100% match grant, or not 100% match, that would make it nothing, but a 0% match grant. So that means you apply for the full cost of the item and hopefully the grant authorizes that. So it's a $414,000 street sweeper, and I hope very much that we get that grant. We will see. Any questions on that? We are on item 22. Additionally, there will be two items, as Nick spoke about in his report. Excitingly, a negative change order of $355,000 for the road program. Nick, maybe you can just take a moment to explain how we end up in this situation with a lot of good news at the end of our road program, because I think it's important for people to understand why that is. We're not just overinflating the numbers. You're being prepared for what might come at you. So take it away.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So typically with the road programs, the problem is with the road program is you don't know what you're going to mill up when they rip up the road. So there's potential that there is base repair issues underneath where they would have to, replace the base underneath in certain areas. You typically see that when there's alligator cracking. And then if there's grading issues on the street that are kind of determined in the field, you can use what's called a scratch coat, which would just, increase the amount of asphalt here or there to improve the grading. So we typically use that for every single road, and we have it as an if and where directed number, it's called. So only when the road is milled up will we tell the contractor, hey, you need to replace the base here, you need to add some scratch cores here. And thankfully in Upper Gwynedd, typically the roads are in pretty good shape, but the last thing you ever want to have is, the other way around where you have a $250,000 positive change order. So we usually have that, that factor of error baked into all of these numbers. And because your road program is such a large road program, you have $1.1 million, typically those negative change orders are bigger than you would see in another road program. It's about, the 10 to 15% for some of those items. So that's typically why the negative change orders come toward the end. We have been kicking around the idea of, reducing some of those factor of error numbers, but every time I kick around that idea, I get a little worried that the next year is going to be the first year that we have that issue. So, I'll talk with John Chavala and Sandra about it in the upcoming year and see if we'll be able to get a little bit more bang for our buck next year, maybe do an extra road or, do some extra ramps so that we don't have to deal with such a large negative change order and we can do a little bit more work since it's already budgeted.
Thanks, Nick. That was a great explanation. So we will have that change order for next week as well as the second payment application. And it's a $570,000 payment for G&B Construction. The next big item is the Sumneytown Pike Bridge Project and Pedestrian Bridge Relocation Project. We are finally at the point, sort of, because we're still working through permitting, where we are ready to ask the board for authorization to advertise. So while we're asking for authorization to advertise, it probably won't be on next month's agenda. We're still waiting on a couple of items with permitting and easements. There's some bad news on this project. I do a big sigh because it's a lot. So when we initially cost estimated this project, it was 2021 when we did the original grant application for the project. Since that time, we all know what's happened to pricing in our world. It's changed quite a lot to the negative. So the bridge project cost increased due to several factors. The first factor is the scope of work was expanded after design reviews with PennDOT and DEP. So they required us to change what we had expected for the bridge. One of those big changes is requiring a larger substructure to handle the water under the bridge and the way the creek had changed that runs under the bridge. So we kind of had to put the bridge in at a different angle than we were planning to, thus having to make it wider, which increased cost. And we had no choice about that one. Secondly, construction costs have risen dramatically since 2020, with steel nearly doubling and concrete increasing in cost by about 50%, adding $800,000 to the project cost. Additionally, phasing construction to keep traffic open to minimize disruption to township residents and to accommodate the county's largest employer, which is located right up the road from this bridge. So a bridge project that we thought was going to be around $1.6 million has turned into 3.8 for the Sumneytown Pike Bridge replacement, as well as $600K, which is in line with our expectations for the pedestrian bridge relocation. The good news is we still have that $1.2 million grant from PennDOT to help pay for the big bridge and a $306,000 grant from DCD for the pedestrian bridge. So altogether, we have about $1.5 million in grant funding for about $4.4 million worth of work. We have done everything we can, gone back to our grant funding agency to see if we could get additional funding given the different scope of the work. No, we can't, as usual. That's typically the answer. Other good news is we have a well-funded capital fund that can absorb these increased costs. And at this point, we've spent so much on planning the bridge, we need to move forward with it. And still, we all have to remember why we're doing this project. The bridge was scour critical at the time when we decided it needed to be replaced.
That was going to be my question. Can you just talk quickly about the timeline and why this has to happen so soon?
Sure. So I don't recall what year the bridge documents were exactly from, either 19 or 20, where they said the bridge is scour critical, you need to do some repairs. So at that time, we actually did some significant repairs to the substructure. And when they were doing the repair, and Nick, I don't remember, were you the engineer at that time? But RVE was? Around the time of the transition. Either way, at the time that we did the repair, we could see that the issue was more critical than it appears on external evaluations, because we had to pull stuff down to be able to load it back up. And at that time, we were able to see that there was more scour than we thought there was. So the bridge needs to be replaced. That's the bottom line. And although these cost increases are significant, I don't think that if we waited or changed our strategy, it would be less. Prices in general seem to only go up, never down. So that's the bad news on that project. I don't want it to ruin a great project, because we should still be really excited about the project, which will replace an important piece of infrastructure and add a very important connection for pedestrians and bikers.
Sandra,
Yes.
what's the timeline then with construction?
Sure.
When do we realistically think we're going to begin construction
Nick might
on
have
the
a
bridge?
different answer. I'm going to say I think we will begin construction this spring. I know Nick wants to say something different, but I don't think it's possible what you want to say, because we still have to get permits and easements.
Depends on how quickly.
Mhm.
Mine would be the
So there's an upside potentially to starting sooner is what you're saying. Okay, I was thinking you were thinking the opposite. So that's,
No,
Okay.
he's more optimistic and sunny about this.
And how long do you think the whole project will take realistically?
Our design engineers estimated it's typically like one construction season. So if we were able to get started in earlier 2026, we would anticipate it would be done before the end of 2026. If we started in the spring, it would probably leak into 2027, but
Okay.
it should be just under a year of construction is the anticipated timeline.
And when will the bridge be moved officially, the walking bridge? The pedestrian bridge, sorry.
That's kind of a means and methods on the contractor when we put it out to bid, depending on when they start the demo. You know, if they start on the one side of the phasing on the one side of the bridge versus the other, then it would be later in the season. I would anticipate that they would do it earlier in the construction. So I would think, you know, in the first half of the year, they would move that bridge.
Okay.
But obviously they have to build the footers and be prepared for moving the bridge first
Right.
as well. So once we get a little bit clearer and when that'll be more of a, once the project's awarded and we're coordinating with the contractor how we're going to do how they prefer to do the phasing, we'll have a better idea of when we're going to be doing that.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
No problem.
Sandra, before we move on, could you just talk about the bridge, like where it is, make sure, because when we hear the bridge,
I'm talking about the bridge on 70 Town Pike near the old Boston style, the new Anthony's
that we drive
Pizza.
over with the
That we
creek.
drive over, and then there's a pedestrian bridge next to it that's going to move up 70 Town Pike to go over the Tolmenson Creek near the Weiss Shopping Center.
And so that bridge is, we drive on that and now it's a safety issue. So we're addressing it to the best that we can.
Yeah, and sort of taking the opportunity while we're addressing that to be able to use because we're redoing the bridge, we put the infrastructure for bikers and walkers on the bridge and they are able to move the other bridge.
Okay.
The other thing I want to stress is these are just estimates, which Nick brought up. We will go out to bid and get real numbers for this project. So these are just estimated increases. Hopefully, if things do get better with pricing when we go out to bid, we could get better numbers. Any other questions on that? And this is also already contemplated and included in the 2026 budget, which you'll start seeing and hearing about next week. We also have, a huge sale of $5,450 worth of old equipment we've had laying around that we posted on Municipid. So that's good. These are all things that we no longer use or cannot use and no longer need and can clear space for products we do need and use for a little bit of a revenue trade-off.
Sandra, when we sell those things, does the money come back to the general fund or does it go back to each individual office that sold?
It goes to the general fund, all of these products. Even if we're not selling fixed assets, because not all of these things are fixed assets. What if we were selling our phone system? What if we were selling some office furniture? What if we were selling equipment that's piled
For
up?
those that can't hear Brian, he's saying capital fund.
Thank you,
Just,
Rebecca.
yeah.
How about if it was a pile of stone? Well, we're not, but I'm just asking these questions to see if there's any chance, because there's some things we buy with there's some things we buy with general fund, but either way,
But
it
I'm-
goes back to the general, it goes back to the capital fund, which is not distributed per department. It's not like Public Works sold 5,400, so Public Works gets back 5,400. We, the township, are selling things, and then it helps to fund future capital expenditures.
Okay, but when they buy it, doesn't it come out of the specific budgets? Like if Park and Rec wanted a lawnmower, wouldn't it come out of Park and Rec budget?
From the capital fund, which funds all of those.
Gotcha.
Yeah. If it was operations, what the track you were going on was correct. But because it's capital, there's a big fund and then we break out the projects. The money's going back into that big fund, and don't worry, Public Works always has the most projects, especially next year. So they'll get their bang for that $5,400. We'll apply it to the bridge. Make it drop in a bucket. The next item we have is a payment to KBC Construction for the work on West Prospect Avenue drainage improvements in the amount of $117,000. And we have two purchases in the wastewater department, one for road torque actuators in the amount of $14,650, and a second for a submersible pump for Briar Glen Pump Station in the amount of $11,642. Both of those are just regular maintenance upgrades for the wastewater department. And finally, a motion to ratify a change order. This is a decision item, President Carter, for the upgrades at Merck. So again, this is a pass-through cost that Merck will reimburse us for. Decision item right now. Yep, it's okay.
Good evening. I'd like to make a motion to ratify change order number 1 to BSI Incorporated for the Merck Pump Station Upgrades Phase 2 in the amount of $12,815. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any board comments? Any public comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Go Phillies. We have two more items that will be contemplated next week, which is the open and paid invoices And that is all I have for the board.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Go Phillies. Have a good night. This meeting is adjourned.